Hello, welcome to episode 82 of the Epic Film Challenge to 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die, 1968's Hour of the Wolf, or as it might be pronounced in its original Swedish title, Vargtimmen, the Hour of the Wolf, the Wolf Hour, referring to the point in the early hours of the morning between 3 and 4 where the most people die, the most people are born, and also the people who can't sleep are still awake. Starring Max von Sydow and Liv Ullmann, and directed by Ingmar Bergman, my second Bergman film after Persona. It's just as weird as Persona in a way, and in other ways even weirder. And where does this fit into the horror category? It's very much one of those kind of psychological horror films. I mean, for the most part, it doesn't feel like a horror film. It feels like a fairly standard kind of drama film, but then it does veer off into these places where there's definitely elements of horror in there, or at least horrifying elements to me. And it's a very weird, different film. The beginning, the credits, you know, that they play on the black screen, you know, the crew, the cast, and you're hearing the shot being set up. You're hearing Bergman talking, you're hearing the crew talking, you're getting the lights ready, getting the camera ready, and then the film starts. And Liv Ullmann walks out from this house, she sits down at this table, and she begins telling us the setup of the story, and she even looks into the camera, she's talking to us and setting up. So it really, right from the get-go, you're feeling like, how is this going to play out? Is this going to be like a real fourth wall-breaking kind of film? Ultimately it isn't, but it starts off that way, so it's an interesting way to kind of kick things off in a weird direction, I think. And it had me, the whole time I was trying to second guess where this was going. And it follows these two characters, married couple, Max von Sydow, considerably older than Liv Ullmann in the film, so he has a younger wife, she's pregnant, and they've been together for quite a few years. And he is a painter, a frustrated artist, and she's kind of there, kind of bearing the burden of his frustrations, I suppose. And they're on this island, and so they're very much kind of split off from the rest of society. There are a few other people on the island, and they kind of play a very integral role into the weirdness of the film, I feel. And it would be kind of betraying the film to really go into too much depth, I feel, about what those characters are. But then again, you know, I can't even go into it. I can't go into it. So I'll have to do a spoiler section in this video, I'm afraid. But it's one of those films where things start happening that don't make sense to me. There are things where it's like, okay, so who's this? And am I seeing a direct flashback now? Was this years ago? Is this the same time? Like, it was hard to decipher some of the scenes, I have to say. But it felt like that was by design. And by the end of the film, you can argue that there is a way to tell what's going on by the time you get to the end of the film. It's pretty clear what happens in terms of the brass tacks of it. But there's so much more to it, like what really happened, you know, what did that really mean? And there's very much like this symbolism and things like that coming into it. And we talked about this recently, a few weeks ago, last month, with films from Buñuel, you know, these surrealist films, and this felt like it had a touch of the surrealism in there, and you had to kind of make it up for yourself. But the thing is, it does have a narrative, it does have this story about this couple going through something, and that kind of, the rest of the surrealist stuff is kind of framed around that, and kind of on the outside of that, although it's on the outside, but it very much goes to the inside as well. So there's a lot of things to kind of decipher with this film, I have to say, and I'll talk about that more in the spoiler talk. So, is it a film you must see before you die? Is it even a horror film? I mean, I suppose it is. It's kind of that psychological horror. There are elements in it that I found horrifying. Not that I get scared by horror films very much, and I was in no way scared by this, but there was these horrific parts of the film for sure. And it's hard to kind of classify this film, it really is. So before we get to spoilers, is it a film you must see before you die? I'm going to say yes, because the performances are so strong. Max von Sydow, great actor. Liv Ullmann, I've only seen her in 2 films so far. The last film I saw her in, she didn't even say hardly anything, but she was brilliant. She's great in this too. Such a natural, you know, the way that she acts is very believable and natural. Yeah, just a very natural actress, and she really holds the film, I feel. Max von Sydow's character goes through a lot of interesting emotions throughout the film, and his character definitely goes on a journey, and he's brilliant, but I feel like Liv Ullmann really kind of carries the film, you know, and it's about her in a way, and it's about her dealing with him and dealing with his frustrations and dealing with what he's going through. And they talk about that, the idea of, you know, if you're with someone long enough, you start to kind of become them, and maybe bear their burdens as well, and that's what the film is about, I think. But it is very weird. It's, a lot of people will not enjoy it, you know. I definitely love the way that it was filmed, the way that it was performed, you know. Bergman just Great filmmaker. I cannot wait to delve into so many more of his films, but just the way that it's done, you know, some great shots in there, but shots that really, they tell the story as well, you know. They're not just there to look pretty, they have a purpose. And I love the mood and the atmosphere. I love the way the wind was blowing in all the time, because they're on this kind of, almost a cliff face, like on the island, so you get a lot of wind coming in, and just, I don't know, there's something about that was kind of cool to me, and I liked the feel of it. And the isolation of that as well, especially with what he's going through and what he's making his wife go through, and the fact that she's pregnant, and you know, there's lots of stuff going on in the film, and it is a film I think you should see before you die, because it could become something that you really, really like. But I could definitely see people not getting on with it as well, and I could totally understand that. So now we're going to talk about some spoilers. Spoiler time. There are lots of characters who crop up, and Max von Sydow starts seeing all of these people, and he's drawing them down and stuff. Great scene where he kind of plops down his notebook next to Liv Ullmann, and he's like, look, I'm seeing these people, I'm seeing these people. There's an old woman with a hat, and I know if she takes her hat off, her face is going to come off, and there's this guy here, and I'm sure he's a homosexual, and all this stuff. And then he tells his story about how he killed this young boy, and it's horrific, where he's just, I mean, it's, lots of things just happen out of nowhere. And then Liv Ullmann starts encountering these people who, are they real? Are they ghosts? Are they demons? You know, is she hallucinating? Is she imagining things? Is she getting caught up in the flight of fancy that her husband is seeing these apparitions, or what? You know, and then she starts reading his diary, finding out more about this other woman that he was with, and things like that. And then they go to this kind of party in this kind of this big castle, I suppose. And I love that scene because it really conveyed, I mean, outside of anything else to do with the film, it really conveyed that feeling you have when you're at a party and everyone is talking over each other, and you're trying to listen to about 3 different conversations at once, and people are talking to you, trying to tell you something, and someone else is talking to you, and just the frenzied chatter that was captured perfectly in this scene. But by the end of the film, you know, it really gets weird. People walking up the walls and stuff, and you just kind of feel like you're inside the mind of a madman, Max von Sydow's character. And then Liv Ullmann, you know, she kind of experiences not as much as him, but there's some similar experiences that she has where it deals with these other characters on the periphery, and whether they're real or not. And the idea that she is taking on kind of his insanity in a way is what I felt. So this is an example of a film where it has surrealist elements where things don't really make sense, and there's still things in it I don't get. You know, the whole ending with Max von Sydow, I'm not sure really what that was supposed to mean or anything, but it really captured something of an insanity. And because we had the story of the two characters and what he was going through, it seemed to work for me. So it's definitely what I want to rewatch and revisit and things like that. And yeah, I think it was a really good film. Maybe not a great film, but a really interesting one. And again, hate to use the tired old cliche, which I'm going to continue to use for the rest of this series, but it was quite unlike any other film I'd seen before because of all the things I just mentioned. And I definitely think it's worth people's time. You know, I mean, it's definitely going to be a hit or miss, but I think that it might be able to hit more than it will miss. So there we go. Hour of the Wolf, very good. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.